All right, for your first assignment, it's more or less just kind of an intro to Animate as well as animation in general. So what you're going to do is open up Animate, and then I would just click on the full HD option here, and that should be good. What I'm going to do also, I'm just going to close out of that. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to control minus minus. Make sure I'm on the timeline, and with the regular select here, click have nothing selected, and then you can choose some of the settings here. So 1920 by 1080, that's fine. But what I do want to change is this frame rate. I'm going to make it 12 frames per second. Just because typically for animation, we usually run as film, which is 24 frames per second, and we would animate on twos. But instead of having to hold everything for 2 frames, we're just going to make it 12 frames per second. Makes it a little bit easier, but it's roughly where is kind of the acceptable frame rate to be viewed. It won't look too staccato, and it offers a reasonable amount of snappiness as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is what's called the magic dot assignment. And so what you're going to do is just literally going to animate a dot over time. And you want to try and incorporate some of the basic principles of animation. So what I'm really looking for here is the timing. So generally how long things take to get from one key position to another key position. Spacing. So the closeness of each frame to each other. So when they're very close together, it'll move slow. When they're farther away from each other, it will move faster. And I want to see a variance, right? So it moves slow and then fast and then, things like that. There should also be arcs present, meaning that the motions should be circular, right? They should be round. Not that you can't use straights now and then as well, but generally speaking, most of the time we want to stick to our arcs. You can even try to apply a little bit of squash and stretch, maybe some blur frames, things such as that. But it should have a general kind of animation quality. One of the reasons why I like this assignment is that later on, well, especially with modern day animation, we typically use a lot of interpolation. So what that means is that you will set key positions. So let be that in 3D or 2D, you'll set a position of a character, and then you'll set another position of a character, and the computer will interpolate between those two positions the frames. It'll basically blend from the one position to the next position, and then you'll subsequently end up with the animation. But what doesn't happen with that is you don't get an idea or a feeling of what each frame is worth. By having to do every single frame, you'll get an idea of how movement should be. And you'll see that when you look at people that are in the industry and what have you, that they animate on every frame, be it 3D or 2D. They'll use the interpolation tools, but inevitably they'll have a keyframe on every single frame. The more the computer does, typically the worse it's going to look. So that being said, let's kind of get to it. This is just going to be a real rough overview, and then you can kind of go from there as you will. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use the basic brush here. So just this brush here. And I'm just going to use, I'm going to click on this here for a color. And let's do, I don't know, like a burnt orange color. Okay. So that's how we get our colors. Typical brush. You can use your bracket keys to make the brush bigger or smaller. If you do have a tablet, this could be pressure sensitive. You just need to make sure you turn it on over here, which I would suggest. Yeah, I'm just going to go from there. Now, what I want to do is you need to do 12 frames per second. It needs to be at least 60 frames, which is more or less going to be 2 seconds. So it's up to you how you want to... that's not right, though. Why does it say 2 seconds? That's not 2 seconds. But it needs to be at least 60 frames. But if you want, and I'm even going to do it on my case, actually, just to make things a little bit easier, you can... So I'm going to pretend... I'm just going to write my name, but I'm going to do it as a cursive. So... you can draw like an outline underneath and then use that kind of as a guide. So I'm going to write my name. Okay, we'll say it like that. I'm going to use that as a guide. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to double click on the paper part here, which is going to bring up its settings. We're going to do an opacity, and let's say 10%. Just need enough that I can see it. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this so that it goes to the full 60 frames. See, now it says 5 seconds. I don't know why it was saying 2 seconds earlier. So we'll click here, and I'm just going to hit F5 if you're on a PC and you don't have a bunch of the function keys, or you can right click on it and you just go insert frame, F5. Okay. And that will just extend it. So now that is just going to be the entire time it's there. All right. And if you want to turn it off, you can just hit this and turn it off. but I'm gonna use that as a guide. So I'm gonna start with that, and then work from there. So we're gonna make sure we're on layer 2. I'm actually gonna take this and lock it so I don't accidentally mess around with it. I'm on layer 2, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to draw a dot, and I'm actually gonna make this dot a little bit smaller. So we're gonna start off real small. Boom. And then what I'm gonna do is I wanna make another frame and another blank keyframe. So I'm gonna hit F7, which will create another blank keyframe. So you can also right click on this and you can see insert keyframe, insert blank keyframe, or sorry, see, why is it saying, anyway, convert to blank keyframe. So basically, if you do F6, it'll copy the current frame. F7 will make a new keyframe. So if you want to just do it this way, you can do it that way as well, because I know that, again, especially if you're on a Mac, those buttons are all like hooked up to something. So it's very frustrating. But if you're on a PC, this will be a lot easier. The other thing I'm going to do too, you can see if I click here and drag, you see I can see the previous frame, but I have to drag. Now, that's not like the worst thing in the world, so you can use the less than greater than symbols to the right of the M key, and you can kind of scrub. This is actually my preferred way of working, but with this assignment, it'd probably be easier if you actually had onion skinning on, so we're just going to go ahead and turn that on by clicking on this guy here. And now you'll see that I can see my previous frame. Okay, so I'm just going to use this guide, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the next one really close. All right, and actually I'm going to undo that, and I'm gonna make the brush slightly bigger too. So like that, I'm gonna hit F7 again to make another keyframe, and I'm gonna make my brush bigger, and we're gonna keep it kind of close again, and then we're gonna do F7. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger, and notice that they're getting a little bit farther each time. Then I'll hit F7, and then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to have it really start to move. So we'll hit F7. And then I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger. All right. Then F7. And I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger. F7. And then we're going to go, let's say, here. F7. So I'm just doing, you could just right click and insert blank keyframe. And then I'm going to start making these closer again. All right, and then we'll hit F7, and then this is going to get real close, and then we'll hit F7, and then we're going to keep it close again, then F7, okay, do it close again, F7, oops, I did a whole bunch of F7s, which I did not mean to do. Okay, and then I'm going to start actually making it a little bit smaller. And then I'm just going to go to the next frame. You could also just like make all the keyframes and just, again, use those arrow keys like I was suggesting before. And we're going to start moving, moving a bit faster. And boom. And okay, so then F7. And actually we'll go like that. And then F7. And then I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. And we're going to do quite a big movement here. So I'm actually going to use a smear where I draw a line kind of across. Then F7. Like so. F7. All right, F7. And then F7. And then F7. F7. So I'm just going to go that far so you can kind of see. But now if I hit enter, you will see the motion kind of go through. Okay. So then what I want to do is actually just turn that off, and then we'll just hit enter again. And now I can see it. All right. And it gives the illusion of it kind of coming into frame, and then it comes and goes back out. Another thing actually helps too. I don't know if that was previewing or not. All right, so my smears could definitely be a lot cleaner. You can see they're not very good. It actually doesn't read very well, the smear part, but okay. And that's what I want you to do. I just want you to do up to 60 frames, just do the dots, play around with it, do something abstract. So I was just doing basically what you saw there, like my name, but you don't have to do your name. You could do whatever you want. Literally, I just want to see the dots moving around and you animating them, spacing them. Play around with it. You can change the color. You can make them bigger and smaller. You could do multiple dots, do no more than just one. Like you can hit the new layer and then add another dot. Maybe try a bunch of them, do a bunch of different things, whatever you want to do. It's just for you to experiment and just to get kind of a feel for how it works. Now, when you are done, what you're going to want to do is that if you do use a reference layer, you actually have to delete it because even though it's turned off here, it still shows up in the final bit. Actually, even if I hit Control Enter, you'll see it shows up, which is kind of dumb. But that's the Swift. I don't know if it would show up with the video, but I know it does show up in the preview. So actually, if you want to preview your stuff too, hit Control Enter, or you go to Control and then Test Movie right there. Okay, yada yada yada. So when you are done, you're basically just going to export this out. So we'll just do File, and then Export, and then let's see, Export Video Media. Export movie. Let's see what that one does. Oh, that's gonna be a JPEG sequence. That's not good for us. Export video media. Okay, yeah. So it's gonna do. You want to do export media. The other ones, if you're like video editing, you'd want to like put it and do an image sequence because it'll be what do you call it? Less compressed. But we're just gonna go ahead and have it export out there. So you want to do export media. Just do the entire movie, which basically means it'll just go to wherever the final frame is. And then just choose H.264. The defaults are fine. This is where it's going to save it. And it's going to actually open up Adobe Media Encoder, and it's actually going to do it from there. I'm not sure if it's automatically going to execute the render or if you're going to have to set up the settings again. So we'll wait and see what happens. Maybe it automatically did it. Let's see. I don't see it. No. Okay, yeah. So it did pop open the Adobe Media Encoder. And let's see. Nope, it automatically is doing it as well. Okay, great. So let's see. And open that up, and it should. Oh, I forgot to delete the layer. So make sure you delete that layer. Otherwise, it will still show up. So basically delete it. Just right click on it and just go to delete layers and then export out. And then do file, export, export video media encoder. And then that will automatically open this up and it will export it out. Make sure that when you name it like your last name, Magic Dot, or week 1 or something like that. And then just submit that onto Blackboard and we will look at them next week. Okay, so really I just want you to experiment and play around with it. Get a feel for how movement works, how to feel spacing, the timing, a feel for the tools. If you want to experiment a little bit more with the tools and try different things, I'm okay with that as well. All right, but I just want you to make sure you're animating frame by frame. All right, good luck.